Beau Schmitt. Thank you for joining me.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Beau, let's talk about the early days of Sunday Scaries. Tell us about your journey from running a bar and grill to launching a CBD company.
My buddy and I, Mike, we owned a full service bar for 3.5 years, had up to 50 employees, open 7 days a week, 16-hour days. Super stressed out. There's a lot of other vices that are available to you in the hospitality industry, from alcohol to drugs, and we didn't want that. So we kind of started exploring. This is 2016, 2017. A friend gave us CBD on a golf course. We loved it. We didn't really resonate with any brands selling the product at the time, so we created our own little side project, which started out as just sourcing and creating and formulating our own gummies, which eventually led into the company that we wholly own and operate right now. So it started as a need. It was something that we wanted, and we kind of carved out what that would look like and eventually remarketed to other people, really focusing on stress, anxiety, and sleep.
hmm So sourcing and making your own gummies. So let's go there. What was the first thing? Let's talk about the research process that once you decided that, all right, we're gonna make our own CBD gummies. Did you know anything about how to make gummies? Because I know that someone I know is trying to make gummies and she can't get the consistency right. It's not, she's thinking about like, do I need to pay $5,000 to buy the formula somewhere or something like that? What was that like for you? How did you figure out how to make it?
Yeah, so first was kind of understanding what the products were, how they interacted with gummies. Kind of the first step is getting samples. So it's reaching out to as many manufacturers as possible. This is easily a Google sheet with a last contacted, supplier name, email, phone, and then a status of the samples that they sent. Eventually, we found our original manufacturer. We don't work with them anymore because we've found better manufacturers. But consistency, quality, certifications are always the challenge, especially in our space, being a cannabis derivative. Large confectionery companies typically won't touch any cannabis-related products. So, with that being said, if you are starting, a gummy product that's non-cannabis, so vitamins, amino acids, other functional ingredients like mushrooms, then there's a large amount of awesome, CGMP certified or FDA registered facilities that'll make those products. And it's really just Googling and asking referrals. I will say that some of the best manufacturers came from referrals for the reason that manufacturers aren't great at SEO. They don't know how to rank. That's not their purpose. So Google searching for the best manufacturer in a specific niche isn't even necessarily going to find you the best answers, because that's kind of the juxtaposition of they manufacture, that's what they do. They don't market. So finding a referral for someone already working with that type of product really helps.
hmm And what was your development process like for the first products, determining the right formulations and dosages? How are you testing it? Oh, I'm now less stressed. I'm still the same stressed, or how was that like?
Yeah, we were testing it on ourselves. So as an introductory dosing, we found that 10 milligrams full spectrum CBD with vitamins D3 and B12 were a good calming combination. And then we gave it out to friends. So we were in the hospitality industry. We owned a bar and grill, so we gave it to bar owners, managers, bottle service girls, bartenders, servers, and got their feedback. And once we found a winning combination, that's when we went to market with our first product.
hmm and I saw you mention somewhere that sourcing U.S. grown hemp is crucial. How did you find U.S. grown hemp? Was that the same process like finding manufacturers? Was it easier, harder through referrals, as you said?
Yeah, so coincidentally, there's a big building in downtown San Diego that says Douglas Wilson Companies. It's a big real estate firm. Well, Douglas Wilson's son, Nick, was a friend of ours, and when we were getting into the CBD industry, so was he on a manufacturing in a manufacturing capacity. So we actually leveraged him just by coincidence. He found family-owned farms in Greeley, Colorado. They started K&D Labs in Lakewood, Colorado. So we got to fly out and meet the families that owned the farms, how they grew it using USDA organic practices. So that was, by happenstance, not as that's one of the luckier, alignments in our journey. But as far as, why, hemp farms are pretty readily findable now versus 2016, 17. But why you don't want to use hemp from China or any other country besides the US is typically hemp is really strong at absorbing mycotoxins, microbials, pesticides, heavy metals. So in between crop cycles, a lot of other countries actually plant hemp to remove all the toxins from the soil, then they remove the hemp and then they replant their cyclical crop. So, that byproduct of hemp, if it's exported to the US, it was used for the sole purpose of collecting those heavy metals, those toxins. Whereas in the United States, hemp is grown as an agricultural commodity for the purpose of, extraction or distillation into another consumer-facing product. So that's why it's important to just buy U.S.
Let's talk about customer feedback. You said that you kind of gave away samples to other bar owners in the hospitality industry, stressed out people. What surprising things have you learned from their feedback that maybe changed your direction or kind of led to new products or, led to new ways of developing the formulations?
Yeah, so there's kind of two things. One is just having a feedback loop. So making sure that, we're documenting how people are feeling, what for efficacy, the actual mouthfeel of the gummy, if it dissolves or it doesn't dissolve, the chewiness, and then the flavor. Ultimately, flavor and effectiveness drive everything. So that's what we really focused on. A lot of the other gummies in the industry were very hempy, which is a very bitter terpene, almost like an IPA, like a hop style bitterness, which a lot of people don't like. So making it sweet was important. The other component of that was CBD was really new. It wasn't readily available. It wasn't in the news. And so we had a large educational component to our, new marketing campaigns. You had to understand what CBD was. Did it get you high? How, what was it?
Does it get you high? I haven't tried
CBD,
it.
CBD doesn't get you high, but
Yeah.
THC, which is another cannabinoid, does get you high, right? So a lot of it was educational because you have full spectrum products that contain THC and all the other cannabinoids. You have broad spectrum, which is no THC, all the other cannabinoids, and then you have isolate, which is just CBD. So, all of that was learned through this process. But the re-education of the consumer was also really important because CBD is great for stress and anxiety management. It blocks cortisol, it blocks THC molecules, and your body has an endocannabinoid system that helps regulate different processes of your body. And so trying to give someone a product that says, hey, this is new CBD, they're like, all right, well, I don't even know what it is. Is it THC? Will it get me high? Really, the consumer education was an important part of the initial launch.
Curious about how you were handling some objections, potential kind of commonly known objections to gummies, like, oh, it gets stuck between my teeth, or you mentioned that you didn't want it to taste like hemp, so you want it to be sweet, but at the same time, sugar, it's kind of common these days for people to have low sugar. How did you kind of deal with those scenarios?
Um, there wasn't the proliferation of this all natural food movement now or anti artificial dyes. So really it was just focusing on the enjoyable nature of the gummies. So, the serving size is two. So it's not like you're going to eat a lot of sugar. It was more important for us to make the gummies taste delicious and be effective than anything else. And so that's what we focused on. We are moving into a more natural reformulation for all of our products now, but historically, really, it's just been about effectiveness. If, in the same way that someone will take a pharmaceutical or a drug like alcohol or MDMA or functional or, psilocybin, they're less worried about the ancillary products that are in the actual products. What they're worried about is safety, effectiveness, potency, and consistency. And so that's really what we focused on. As a new product on the market, it's just getting your hands dirty. We had hundreds, if not thousands, of samples from different manufacturers, and it's really just taking the first step because we didn't know how to launch, but we knew how to take the next step after we figured out one step. So that's kind of like our 2 cents about launching a new company.
Mm-hmm. So you found the manufacturers, you found US grown hemp, sourced it, got some feedback from the local hospitality folks, made it somewhat sweet, and the consistency is good. Now we're ready to launch our first SKU. What was the first SKU? Or was it just one or two or
Yeah,
three?
so it was one bottle of 20 gummies. That's still our flagship bottle. They're 10 milligrams, full spectrum CBD each, vitamins D3 and B12. I mean, we were hand packing them originally, so we were
Oh,
shipping them. So we had 3 stories of the bar. We obviously have a clean environment because it's a bar with health food regulations. So, we're bottling the gummies before the bar opens early in the morning. And we are, all plastic, masks, putting 20 gummies in a bottle, very manual. We're buying in bulk from 5 to 10,000 gummies from a manufacturer. We're driving, picking them up in the back of a parking lot, bringing them home in their sealed bag, or bringing them to the bar in the restaurant in the sealed bag, filling the bottles manually, and then just researching. We found a thermogenic seal to protect the gummies that are in. Everyone's using gloves and has masks. Then you put a cap on, and then you do a shrink wrap and you melt it. So it was very manual out of the gate. Eventually, as volume grew, we started hiring other people. We moved that operation into its own office outside of the bar because it couldn't have both running at the same time. And the bar was priority at the time, as this was like a side project. And yeah, it was very manual. All those Instagram videos you see of people starting it in their garage and that first big move into a warehouse, like that's real. And I think that's really how all startups should start, as like a proof of concept and just to understand every part of the supply chain.
you said the bar was a priority at the time, and this was just a side project. And what is it like now?
Well, the bar, we closed and sold the license at the end of 2019, which turned out to be a blessing because 2020 would have,
Wow, perfect
COVID
timing.
would have decimated it. But the hospitality, owning a full service bar, I wouldn't wish it on anyone that's over 30 that has kids. So it's a 20-year-old's learning or master's degree in business is running your own bar because it is relentless and it is unforgiving. So
Yeah. So let's talk about pricing. How did you decide how much to charge for the first bottle?
mostly just looking at competition. So there were a few large companies at the time, either public or close to going public, and we just looked at their pricing. We priced closer to a Red Bull model at the time, where we were a smaller handcrafted premium product, versus a larger bulk buy discounter, and that's kind of always been our kind of core has been brand centric on the premium side.
Hmm.
So as far as pricing, we wanted to make sure that we were within reason of 20% of our largest competitor, and that we also had enough cash flow for research, operations, and growth. So the pricing was de- less determined by what we thought the customer would pay and more determined on competitors and what we needed internally to survive.
How did you sell the first 100 bottles?
2017 was like the beginning of the influencer craze, where an influencer would put a product on their feed with a special tracking link and get a $5 kickback per bottle. I mean, we had influencers with 10 to 100,000 followers that were willing to post for $5 a bottle as a kickback. Now those CPAs are, $50 to $150, and flat fees are thousands and thousands of dollars. But this is the infancy of the influencer. I mean, creator wasn't even a word back then. It was just influencer marketing was this new kind of social commerce. And so it really grew socially. It was having friends and friends and friends and people we found on Instagram that were in the hospitality industry, sending them bottles and asking them to post. And that's really how we grew organically out of the gate.
Is that still working or no?
It is, but it's completely different. It might as well be the Stranger Things top world, bottom world is completely flipped. And now it's more structured, more vetted, and definitely more saturated. So there are diminishing returns over time.
I saw you had mentioned that education was a challenge early on. How has your messaging evolved as consumer understanding of CBD has grown?
We focused more on the what before, so what we are selling. And if you're a fan of Simon Sinek, transforming into the why, people don't buy what you sell, they buy why you're doing it. We've focused more into the pain point and mission-driven component as of lately. So before it was educational, so it's like, here we're selling CBD gummies. What are CBD gummies? This is how they can help. This is education behind that. Now it's, what does Sunday Scaries mean? It means helping people so they don't feel alone. No one should feel alone in their daily battles against stress, anxiety, and sleep issues. So that's, what we're dedicated to, is making sure people don't feel alone. And we do that through effective, safe and tested hemp-based or other wellness products. And so focusing more on the why, the mission-driven, and why someone would purchase the product for stress relief, because they want to spend more time with their kids. They want to calm their racing mind so they can be present with their wife. They need to escape social media. It's more on the why now.
Beau, I imagine digital marketing as a CBD brand must be pretty challenging with all the restrictions. I know that payment processing companies, for instance, like Stripe, I don't know if it's still on their restricted businesses list, but at one point I know that it was. How have you managed to grow despite those kinds of limitations? What have you learned? Is there anything that you could share about that? Some creative workarounds, maybe.
Yeah, so Stripe, PayPal, now, so Shopify is, the glowing giant in the e-commerce space for storefronts. I think ahead of Wix, BigCommerce, WooCommerce. Shopify uses ShopPay, which we can't use. So we use authorize.net with a direct link plugin as our payment processor. So it does have a lot of disadvantages, though. Like ShopPay they both are encrypted. They're both completely safe to process through. But for example, when you have a subscription and it reruns through ShopPay, which we don't have, ShopPay, sends the bank certain signals that says like, hey, this is an authorized monthly recurring subscription. The customer has selected this, and every month they're going to get rebilled at X amount, every 30, 45, 60, 90 days, right? Authorize has to process every transaction as a new transaction. So one of the problems is someone buys a subscription, they sign up for it, they want their gummies or their oils delivered on a monthly basis, but every new transaction that goes through, a lot of the times, I would say maybe like 15 to 20% of those are declined, just because the way that we have to process everything through another gateway, it shows up as a new transaction, where the bank is like, oh, looks like a duplicate transaction, so I'm going to block it. So there is a lot of loss there, which is unfortunate. But we've had steady payment processing. We use banks that allow CBD, and then We also keep our refunds under 3% of total volume and chargebacks under 0.003%, which is just really safe banking. So it's really on the refund and the chargeback, and that's really only afforded by legitimate, wellness lifestyle companies that are selling
Hmm.
products like ours. On
It
the
probably took
restrict,
some time to build that kind of reputation with the financial companies, right?
we've been with our merchant processor for a few years. It does take time to build. There are a lot of solutions
Like
now.
SEO almost.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time to build. You mentioned the advertising challenges, and that's the biggest thing we've
Mm.
faced since day one. So we have very restricted policies on Facebook and Instagram. We're not allowed to use SMS messaging. So large carriers can fine you if you use SMS. There are companies doing it, and it's a very black hat or cloaked way of doing that. We're restricted on Google, YouTube, Google Display Network, Google Display Ads. Not allowed on Amazon. So anything on Amazon that says CBD or hemp is fake or cloaked.
Mm.
Twitch not allowed. TikTok is restricted. X is allowed, but X has a lot of platform issues. Um, and then the other one I'm forgetting is
Did you mention Google Ads or no?
yeah,
Yeah.
YouTube and Google are both restricted. So to combat that, we are launching our first non-cannabis product. It's a functional mushroom gummy for
Hmm.
focus and energy. So it'll have extracts from lion's mane, chaga, some amino acid, and caffeine. So that'll be great for us to advertise on new platforms without being restricted.
Hmm. I mean, just when you were running through the list of restricted things, it just like sounds really painful, man. Did you know this was going to happen when you first started it?
No, but we've been around 7, almost 8 years now, so we're pretty used to it. And it's also changed. So like Facebook used to be like when we launched and started running Facebook ads in 2018, Facebook didn't even have a category for CBD. So we were just running CBD gummies for stress, driving to our product pages unimpeded, and we scaled really quickly. And then in
Hmm.
the end of 2018, they created a restricted product and they added CBD to that following the 2018 Farm Bill. And then CBD was really difficult to advertise. So you basically
Hmm.
have to, follow all these restrictions of saying you can show the product kind of. You can't show it being ingested. You can't say what it is. You can't drive to your product pages. You can't drive to your home page. So you have to drive to like clean landing pages. But every time you discount what you're doing, you're losing your marketability. If you're saying you basically can say like gummies that help with sleep and then drive to a page that says nothing about what the product is and then to another page. But unfortunately, at every step, you're gonna, have a a decreasing return on ad spend. So it is very challenging. We do have a lot in PR, a lot in affiliates, and a lot in SEO. Our other non-restricted channels, podcasts are unrestricted as well, and so is email. So there are opportunities to grow, but it is definitely very challenging.
Well, knowing what you know now, would you have started it again? I can see that now you're going at least adding a new type of product with the functional mushroom gummies to kind of not deal with these types of restrictions. But would you have done something differently if you knew everything you know now back then?
I don't think so,
So totally worth
because
it then, even
I
despite the
mean,
pains.
yeah, to date, we've helped over 250,000 people with their stress, anxiety, and sleep issues. And that could have only been achieved by providing the CBD products. We also, as we go into new projects or new products, we have a very good understanding. It was like basically it's been a 7-year master's degree on how every platform operates, what's wrong with every platform,
With the
what
most
at
difficult kind of product too.
yeah, it's like I mean, it's like selling as far as the advertising platforms are concerned, it's like selling guns or tobacco or porn or so it's a it's called a vice category, so it's a restricted category.
So some of the other channels I noticed you recently moved into out-of-home advertising. How's that working out? And also, how about retail? Is that an option?
So retail, we've stayed out of. We've kept it as white space. Really, we're with, the FDA and Congress. They've been batting the next farm bill back and forth. And once it's clarified of how CBD should be handled as a dietary supplement, that'll open up retail. So most of the retail success you see from other CBD companies has been in topicals, and we don't make topicals. So that's why we've stayed out of retail. We've also heard nightmare stories from our other friends that have gone into retail with ingestible products. CVS, Walgreens, they have insane clawback, buyback clauses. And so we've just avoided retail. And then on the out of home, we did try out of home. It fell flat on its face. We were hoping we tried a regional test. There's not really any tracking attribution for it. You cannot put a QR code on a billboard because you could be liable for causing a traffic accident.
Oh,
So, so what we did is we did 8 or 10 billboards in our San Diego area, and we tracked, growth regionally through Google Analytics and sales analysis, but we really didn't see any lift. So that was kind of a failed state. We are excited about new TV opportunities. Companies like Bray and Zuka offer almost like display advertising for TV, and so we've done some TV commercials, and that's been pretty fun to see.
Well, you mentioned influencers and affiliates, and also creators. For the creators who are listening or watching, what are some of the things that you look for when you're partnering, collaborating with creators? One of the things I want to ask you, products like it's probably very important how you talk about the product. I recently talked to somebody that he said it's very challenging to work with creators because of the FDA restrictions on what you can say, what you can't say. I imagine that must be a concern for you as well.
Yeah, so there's, kind of two schools of thought there. So one regarding you can't make medical claims. So, like every supplement company from Ghost, who was just acquired for $1 billion, to Dr. Squatch with soaps, like any wellness company, you'll see it on their footer, right? These products cannot prevent, cure, treat, or diagnose any disease. So a creator can't get on and say, I love this product. It cures anxiety, but they can say like, I took this product and it really helped me with my anxiety. They can make a personal statement, right? And that's just free speech. I mean, there's nothing against that. So creators taking an organic stance. We've seen a degradation of coupon code usage. They're like less salesy. Our best partnerships have come from creators that are willing to do a performance basis and start organically. So, which is tough because a lot of creators want a flat fee up front. But in our experience, about 90% of those always fall short of the initial ROAS. So they don't even break even on the first campaign. And for a handful of reasons. One, the fee is too high. The audience doesn't trust the product, and it looks too salesy. So what we see the most success with is a creator who is willing to put a special link for tracking in their bio. They have Linktree, or on Twitch, or on YouTube, or on Facebook. They have their own bios. They can add links, and then they just have the product in the background, or taking it without mentioning it for the first couple exposures of the product. We're seeing significantly higher success with that more organic approach, where you create some mysticism around the
Sorry,
products.
what do you mean when you say they have the product in the background?
Yeah, so if I'm talking right now, take out my products right here. So I have our flagship bottle right here. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm a creator and I'm doing something, right? If they're
Mm-hmm.
cooking or they're working out, is that this bottle is, you know, it's off, it's sitting like on the counter somewhere. Um, and maybe they take it after a workout or they take it on their desk while they're working if they're, you know, an entrepreneurial creator. But people ask about it. It creates some mysticism. So we actually like seeing the product in the background or in use without a mention of the product at least twice before doing a promoted post where they actually
Interesting.
feature it. Because then people that follow them and see them on a regular basis have seen it and they're like, oh, what is that? Like, what are they doing? Because it creates that want to know from the consumer versus like, hey guys, like I just tried these, you know, I
Mm.
really recommend them. Go get 10% off with my code Becky10. You know, it's just like people are like, ah,
Just too
whatever.
salesy, too
It's too
quickly.
salesy.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, I love these. Click link in my bio. Versus like creating a conversation around the product. So,
Mm.
you know, we offer a CPA program starting between $30 and $60 per sale is what we offer for
Mm-hmm.
creators. A lot of creators see an extra, you know, 2 to 6 grand a month in payouts just by talking about the product once a week in a story. But in their bio, there's a link that you know goes to our product pages, and that's not restricted.
Mm.
That's totally fine. So less on the these are CBD gummies with 10 milligrams, you know, CBD and vitamins D3 and B12, and more on the I'm going to casually take 2 or 3 gummies and be like, I'm feeling pretty calm. You know, these are Sunday Scaries. I love them. They help manage my daily stress. If you are curious, like there's a link in my bio.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll check that out. Like it's not salesy. I'm not getting like 10% off. You can always find that later online. So that's what we're seeing a lot of. And it's really authentic UGC over all of the authentic UGC that we use to promote is performing significantly better than all the professionally done videos and UGC, edited UGC. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm. But if you wanted to start a new brand now from scratch, what category would you choose?
functional mushrooms.
Hence the new product line.
Yeah, so we're coming out with functional mushroom gummies. I've been a fan of functional mushrooms for years, and I really think that them, you know, unfortunately, we're not pairing them with CBD for the marketability. You know, we need that shining star product that can advertise without restrictions. But the blend that we're working on, that we've been working on for months, should be really effective. So,
Final two-part question. Top two problems giving you a headache right now, and top two priorities you have for the year.
top 2 things giving me a headache are one is attribution. I feel like attribution is still just this thorn in the side of all online marketing. And so making sure you have good tracking links that can actually give you good data. That's always been a thorn on my side. And then I would say it's just follow-ups. You know, we work with a lot of partners, we work with a lot of creators, and really it's just communication. You know, we do see working with some smaller creators, a big fall off of constant communication. And so, you know, the hardest part on our end is just making sure that we are in constant communication, that we're supportive, we're providing them free products, links, and everything we can so that they can do what they do best, which is create content, and we can do what we do best, which is fulfill the promises of that content. So, uh, what was the other question? 2 things for this year?
The priorities that you're excited about. One of them is the new functional mushroom, I imagine.
Yeah, and we're going through a rebrand internally right now. So we've historically been a house of brands. So our vegan gummies were everything was personalized independently. So our vegan gummies were vegan AF, vegan fuck, and our sleep drops were Big Spoon, and our THC gummies our couch potatoes. That's all being revamped into just Sunday Scaries sleep drops, Sunday Scaries, unicorn candy, Sunday Scaries, THC gummies, which is kind of us maturing the brand. It's not our customer base of older Gen Z and the millennials has evolved over the last 7 years, and we're kind of at the point where we need to evolve and mature the brand as well. So,
Beau Schmitt, thank you for sharing your journey with me.
thank you for having me. Appreciate it.